Hello to our listeners and viewers, and welcome to a very special episode of Not Wasting a Single Story. I remain your host, Dr. Gamuchirai Mutezo. Today, I am super excited to have two individuals who are representing the public sector. We've been wanting to have conversations with individuals from a municipality, and I'm delighted that we have a representative from the city of Johannesburg as well as the city of Tshwane. So this is going to be a flourishing episode. Yes, flourishing, because we're going to look at the efforts, the strides, the activities that are already taking place, and ensure that by the end of this conversation, you, and yes, you right there, are intentional to appreciate where they're at and how you can be involved in these strides. Let me start with you, Mokgadi. Welcome, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Dr. Kamo, for having me here.
Great.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Wonderful, wonderful. And can you tell us a little more about who you are and what you're doing at the City of Johannesburg?
Thank you. As you've said, my name is Mokgadi Maphoto. I'm recently being appointed as the head of Sustainable Waste Project and Minimisation Programs. So I've been with the city since 2016, responsible for development and implementation of sustainable waste projects in the city of Johannesburg.
Awesome. Firstly, to the listeners, halala, halala, halala to you. So
you.
as you're watching, remember to say halalifications to Mokgadi. It's always nice to appreciate the strides from one portfolio to another, but I suppose it means a bigger work chunk for you.
Very.
Yeah.
The higher you go, the colder it becomes.
I mean, look, we can change this water for gin. Just wink and we can make a plan.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Awesome. And moving on to you, my good sir.
Oh, yes. Louis Makhubele is the name. I'm in the city of Tshwane, responsible for waste programs in the city. So it's, so I have the very difficult task of ensuring that, we can find ways to manage our waste efficiently and sustainably in the city. So we've got a growing division. It's a division that sits under a Department of Environment in the city. So we have the very difficult task, as I said, of seeing programs that would mean that our waste in the city is sustainably managed. So we're glad to be here, and hopefully this will be worth our audience's time, and we hope that we'll be able to add color to the work that the cities are doing. And I like your intro saying that, there's a lot of problems, but there is good work as well. So we're looking forward to sharing just a bit.
In fact, you can come and sit here and I'll sit there because you have just nailed the entire podcast and the purpose for this. And once again, you are both very welcome. So one of the things that we do on this particular podcast is just to get to know you as individuals. We do have the LinkedIn profiles, we've got the email signatures, but I'm sure at some point growing up, either you were exposed to these key terms of sustainability, or probably the parents and the siblings were doing things that exposed you to it. So I'll start with you, Mokgadi. Growing up, was sustainability, was waste management, principles of circularity a conversation that you had at home, or you saw it through various experiences, or maybe you got exposed to it at a later stage in a different setup?
I think I'll start from my tertiary life, even high school. I think when I was growing up, I started wanting to make sure that the environment is protected and conserved for the future use. So when I was choosing the kind of course that I wanted to do, so I was specifically looking at the environmental sector. So then I went to UJ. I studied environmental health, where environmental health, we're looking at the protection, prevention, making sure that the environment is protected. So we had different subjects there. So I fell in love specifically with environmental pollution prevention. So where then we were looking at your environmental planning, your environmental pollution, what pollutes our environment. We're looking at your air pollution, your water and land. So with the land, that's where I fell in love with the waste management sector, where we studied about what pollutes our environment more and what the rises of illegal dumping, what does it do to the environment. And that's when I pursued the love for environmental. And also, I think also if we need to look at also legislatively and policy based, where Section 24 of our Constitution is very clear that we need to have our environment protected for the future use. So that's when then I went even further, studied environmental science with Potchefstroom University of Northwest. That's where I specialize now in waste management and looking at the technology solutions of how best can we handle and solve our waste management issues. That's when now I went into a technology space of moving away from your traditional way of waste management to more sustainable way of handling our waste. That's when the city of Johannesburg also we started a program of ensuring that we're no longer looking at your traditional of waste collection to disposal, but need to take care of the waste in the middle to move away from your traditional way, and also to also look at your waste minimization strategy, your waste management hierarchy, that we need to, before you can dispose, you need to make sure that you have employed all the possible solutions, and then disposal will be your last resort. So that's when then I fell in love with the sustainable, making sure that whatever that we do is in a sustainable way to conserve. And I think also waste was not viewed as one of the resources. People never viewed waste as a resource. For many of us, waste was just a rubbish. That's it. You just put it in the bin, the truck comes and collects it, it gets disposed. But now we are moving and changing the dynamics to say you can actually beneficiate from this rubbish that you see into your bin. That's when now we put in these programs in place to ensure that we treat our waste in a sustainable way, to ensure that environment is protected, and also look at the beneficiation that comes. No one ever thought that you can actually generate electricity from the rubbish that you see in the bin. So that's what we are trying to do and change the mind shift of our young generations. I also have talks with my daughter as well. I think she once had a project where they needed to talk about the benefits, how to treat the waste. And then she was the only one in class that talked about that you can generate electricity from waste. And then the teacher also, after the class, she came, she asked Warabile, how did you know that? And then she started explaining, my mom, she's an environmental specialist. She always talks about the importance of recycling, how we must separate our waste, how we can benefit from the waste stream. So that's how it started, and we're still enjoying it. There are programs that will go into details when we further unpack them in the city of Joburg.
Two comments. You used the word love more than 758 times. And I must say, most of the guests that we have here on the podcast, that's what comes out. Those of us who are playing in the space, we love it. It's almost an addiction.
Yeah, it
Like,
is.
we know the challenges, but we still wake up and we go try, we go hustle. So kudos to that. It means you're meant to be on the green couch because you love the waste management space.
Yeah.
And I also appreciate the fact that you have the conversations with your daughter. I mean, that is the beninging, as I always say, of mindset shift. Having such conversations at home, being intentional to do that, because tomorrow she will do more.
Yeah, that's
She
true.
will add on the work that we are trying to do within our generation. So kudos and congrats. And maybe we might look at having her on the podcast one of these
Oh,
days.
that will be nice.
Yeah, and hear it from a young person's perspective. Tell me, what did your mama teach you? And we could do quality control along those lines. Moving on to you, Louis.
Yeah.
These concepts, what happened for you to get here? Did your mama also teach you about it?
No. Look, I think unlike my colleague at COJ, I think I stumbled on the waste.
Interesting.
Yeah, I stumbled on waste. I started off my even, if I look at the academic side of things, I started off doing chemistry. I wanted to be in the lab. I wanted to be a guy in a white coat in a lab.
Ah, sorry.
Yeah. So when I went to University of Cape Town, I went to do my BSc in chemistry. And when I came out of that, I landed a job at a provincial Department of Environment. And I was there to work in their division that was looking at mine water decants. We were facing a very difficult issue in the eastern part of Gauteng with mines that were spewing out acidic water. So the province, or the environmental department of province, decided to look at bringing in people with chemistry to kind of come up with solutions, obviously. And that's when I started interacting with guys that were doing environment and doing environmental work and stuff like that. So my horizon started growing from there to say, oh, okay, so there's stuff called environment and all of that. And so I started pursuing that kind of knowledge and ended up in a course in the University of Pretoria called Environmental Technology, where obviously waste being part of environment started coming up into my space. But when one looks back, you kind of realize that there was some sort of passion around, the cleanliness and issues around the environment.
Yeah.
Because I remember growing up, the issues of us growing up. I grew up in a small town called Giani in the northeastern part of Limpopo.
Yes.
Growing up, the issue of pushing a wheelbarrow with waste to go dump at some spot was not what was done all the time. But I found that I struggled with it. I couldn't compute it. I
The
felt,
wheelbarrow was twisting to the
yes, like I
left,
didn't like it. You kind of feel that no, man, this looks wrong. Everyone is doing it, but it looks wrong. And so I think perhaps that deep down somewhere underlying there was passion for cleanliness, seeing that this is not something that we should be doing. And so I think we grew from there in doing work in academically, you start learning about these things and you start seeing opportunities to start working with this material. And fast forward, found myself working in the municipality space, looking at environment and focus on waste.
Yeah.
And I think I've been loving it since then. And for me, the concept of sustainability is something that I must say that as municipalities, we, especially perhaps the city of Tshwane, and I think when we start going into some of the details that we do, you'd realize that we're growing into the space. It's a concept that's growing. And I mean, now I'm just thinking about, you're sharing about her kids and what they think about their work. My kids, when I tell them, I work for the municipality and I work for the waste, they say, you are garbage man. you know? So, but when you start telling them exactly what goes into this garbage story, you can see the intrigue and the interest.
Yeah.
So, and I do agree that, there's an opportunity for us to actually get our young ones also involved in this. And I've always found that children, we teach them the wrong things, but I think it's an innate thing that environment and care for environment, it's an innate thing in kids. And perhaps that's where that, like I was saying, that my background, I could see that there's something in it.
Yeah.
And I guess even the kids. So when you show them that there's actually work that's geared towards protection of this beautiful environment, you can see them light up. And so that's where I come from. And as far as work that we're doing now, sustainability is the way to go.
Yeah.
I like that term when it talks about environmental management, saying that we are managing a planet that we've borrowed. It's not ours. We borrowed it from our children, and we need to be able to hand it back to them, and they can do the same to their children, children's children. So it's that concept that we don't own it, but we need to take care of it for the future generations. So that's what drives us, I guess.
I'm really liking this part of the conversation because I'm appreciating you as individuals and just your story. For the parents who are watching, have these conversations tonight, this afternoon, in the morning with your kids because clearly there's something there. There is something that's brewing when it comes to the opportunities that this wonderful space has to offer. And for those young people who are a bit conflicted about what do I need to study, look, just come to the industry. Here is exhibit A of what happened. I wanted a lab coat, and hey, lo and behold, here you are. So again, this is also indicating what is possible across that entire value chain, not just only from the mindset shift, but even in career guidance and career development. Where can you go? What can you look at? And bumping into some of these opportunities by chance because you were willing to open your mind and you're willing to have the conversations. Now, with that tone being said, let's get to the next level. We know the challenges. Even our grandparents at the age of 77, 102, they have challenges. Challenges are inevitable, right? And one of the ongoing conversations is always around organic material. I'm trying to avoid the word waste because, yeah, it doesn't sit well. So organic.
As the city of Joburg, as I've indicated, that annually we generate about 1.6 to 2 million tons of waste per annum. And our waste composition has already indicated that most of our waste that is generated in the city is about 30% of to 32% of our organic waste. So this organic waste now, it includes your food waste and even our garden waste, the waste that we cut our trees at home, our city parks is our main generator of this waste, especially the garden waste. And then if in the food waste, we have the city as Joburg market, fresh produce market, which also is a more contributor in terms of our food waste. And we also those have those small quantities that are coming at a household level. So as we are sitting, as I've indicated, it's about 35% of this waste that ends in our landfill site. Currently, as we were saying, traditionally the waste goes to landfilling. So that's where we are in the city in terms of the quantities of this waste. So as we are sitting now, that's where now we try to see how best can we come with solutions to deal with this waste. But currently, as the status quo, most of our waste was going to our landfill side. But as a city, as we also have picked it up that are responsible for operations, so they also have an infrastructure besides our landfill sites. We also have our drop-off facilities. The better time will be our garden waste sites where most of our waste then will be then taken by our communities to go drop their waste there, and then it gets collected to our bigger landfill site. So as we are sitting, the city has about 3 operational landfill sites. And as a city, we are running out of airspace. And you know that not in my backyard syndrome that, yeah. So we tried looking at alternative land for us to build a new landfill site, but people don't want it next to next to my apartment. And also, as waste, like I've indicated, is viewed as rubbish. So we get to fight. Can I use the word fight with the other service delivery service that are rendered in the city, like your water or your electricity and housing? So if we were to get a land that we need to build a landfill site versus building houses, which one will it win? Obviously, the houses will win. So that's where we are, to say we don't even have land for us to build new landfill site while we have this crisis of about 3 years of airspace that is remaining in the city. And also legislatively, our competent authority have also put a statement that they will never issue any environmental authorizations for a new landfill site. And also they've also indicated that garden waste, food waste is not accepted in our landfill site. So we need to come with solution how we will be treating that type of waste stream. So that's where we are in the city now.
As you were speaking, I'm just hearing, opportunity, opportunity, opportunity. Because all of this sounds like an opportunity.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
And the fact that land space has to, what's the word, compete, fight with others, that's our reality because the rate at which our cities are urbanizing, there'll always be that fight. it also inspires even from a curriculum redesign and redevelopment. Whether we're looking at gentrifying spaces or we're looking at intentionally designing in some of these solutions, that becomes some food for thought. But before we get into the solution component, Louis, I'd like to hear from you the state of organic material.
Organic material, yes, yes. No, look, I think we're not too different in terms of what the description from City of Joburg. We similar, and I think that's the character of African cities. I think the organic component of our waste.
Yeah.
There's a lot of organic material in our waste streams, and I think the pressure that comes from lack of land to continue with our conventional bearing of waste, which is not sustainable. We are also facing a situation where we now need to look at how do we manage this better.
Yeah.
Considering that it's a large portion of our waste, and as officials in the waste space, we are charged with the responsibility of sustainable waste management. So if you're going to look at managing waste sustainably, I think obviously you're very interested in what is in my waste and what can we do. If you can't bury it anymore, can I do something else with it? And that's where we come from. We launch from that kind of understanding that there's ways that you can use this waste for material for other things. And I think the opportunities are there for all of us. And we currently looking at various ways. And I mean, we have the same kind of setup, as I said, with City of Joburg. We've got garden waste facilities that are receiving a lot of organic waste that comes from gardens, from our residents. We have a lot of food waste that comes from obviously all the food handling facilities and our households as well, which presents an opportunity. And so we are all in the space of looking at all these waste streams and saying, what is the best way to deal with it?
Yeah.
And, I think we've all come to the understanding that all this material, and I like the way that we're talking about, or the description earlier, that we shouldn't look at waste as something to dispose or to dump. It's a resource. And if you take it from that point of view, organic waste or organic material is a very valuable resource. So we in the same space that we're trying to look at what's the best way to deal with it. And there's a lot of exciting stuff that's happening. We're learning from other municipalities as well, and also from the private sector, what they're doing with regards to using material that comes from the organic component of it, to say what is possible, what can be done with it. So we are also in that space where we're trying to find ways to handle it.
Awesome. Now for the fun part that we've been waiting for. Me adjust myself properly for this one. The interventions, the interventions. So one acknowledges, we appreciate, we have heard that your garden material and food waste continues to be a pain point of an opportunity. But as you sit in your offices, you move around from point A to point B, one is certainly acknowledging that there are activities that have been, that are, and that will still continue to happen, especially within that frame of sustainable waste management that both cities are evolving towards. So I'd love to hear what projects, whether it's internally or through partnerships with private sector, probably NGOs, whatever the case may be, what interventions have you been or working on? Let's hear them, let's celebrate them, because we need to shift the mindset on the work that you are doing. We'll start off with you.
Yeah, I think we, as the City of Joburg, we already modeled the other waste streams, how we can treat and beneficiate from them. So we had other projects that we are doing. So specifically, I'll start with the food waste.
Okay.
With the food waste, what we looked at, it was for us to look at how best can we treat our Joburg market fresh produce food waste that is coming there as a pilot. And then we partnered with Jeff Global Environmental Facility. We also partnered with DBSA, Development Bank of Southern Africa, And then we also, another thing that we also realize as a city, that we need the tertiary institutions to come through with your research. There are more have the capacity to do more detailed research. And then we worked with University of Johannesburg just to check on the composition of that food waste. What can we do with it? And then it recommended that we can treat this food waste through a biodigestion. We can treat it through a biodigestion. That's when then we developed a 50-ton biogas plant. We will treat only our food waste, and in that we will be generating the biofuel that will be coming there. We said we will be taking it to our metro buses. We want to change the transport sector in the city of Johannesburg, not to rely on using your normal diesel, petrol, but we want to move into a sustainable fuel that can be sustainable in the long run. And also remember, even in our climate action plan, we are very clear in terms of that we need to reduce as much as possible our greenhouse gas emissions that are coming from waste as well as the transport sector. So that's where now we look at leveraging the partnership within the city's department to say, you are emitting. So as waste management, we have a solution that we will treat our food waste, and then you will use the fuel that is coming that from there, and then the environment will not be polluted from the other fuels or diesels that are not environmental sustainable. That's the program that we put together. But also looking at the specific, also the garden waste, because as a city, as we have modeled the other technologies, and then we realize when your likes of C40, when they came and say, what can we do for the city? And then we said, can we leverage on the look at the garden waste? We have not done anything on the garden waste. Yes, we know in our composition that we do have a lot of garden waste that is generated in the city of Johannesburg. That's when, together with the C40, we put a program of how can we beneficiate in our garden waste sector. So with that, because it was we were starting, so we started to understand the sector of garden waste, who's in the sector. And then we started to do a gap analysis, your needs assessment, stakeholder mapping, stakeholder engagement, and C40 assisted us in appointing a service provider that was helping us as the city to do the gap analysis and needs assessment of where this quantification of the garden waste, where are the sources of this garden waste, and who are the players, the role players in this space. And then in that gap analysis, it was concluded, the gap analysis and needs assessment. And then it came and recommended how best can we deal with the garden waste. So and then in that, we put a program to say, let's turn in our garden waste into composting. Instead of it going to the landfill site, can we look at another treatment solution? So that treatment solution was composting. So then in that, we went further into phase 2 of saying, how can we then implement this program of turning garden waste into composting? That's when then we look at different business models. With the assistance of C40, again, we went into appointing a service provider that looked into detail the best business model as the gap analysis recommended, that possibly what we can do as a city, we can just divert this garden waste to the private sector. Or secondly, the city can have their own composting facility, or we can look at partnering both the city and the private sector. So those were good recommendations that came from the gap analysis. So we went further into getting a financial modeling then of which best solution will actually work for the city of Johannesburg. As we have said, as a city, waste is competing with other service delivery. So budgetary constraints, we do have challenge in terms of budget. And then when the business case was then done and developed through the stakeholder engagement, then we looked at to say, as a city, we really need to work with the private sector. And then we looked at a hybrid model that will include both the municipality and the private sector. So in that, when we were still doing that, we realized to say, as the city employees also, capacity is also a challenge. The business case then recommended, how about do we start, before you get to your end goal of composting, what other option can we employ within before we get to composting. And then we realized, and then we doing stakeholder engagement when the private sector came in to say, as a private sector, we can actually of take your waste. But for us to take it, it needs to be chipped.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? Because if we come and collect it in bulk, then it's costly for us. The transportation of coming to get the bulk garden waste material. But when it's chipped, it's more sustainable for us to come and take the quantities that will make financially sense. And then that's when we went back and knocked in the C40's doors to say we need to capacitate our people. So we need to capacitate our people. What can we do? So then we put to say, can we train our people?
Yeah.
As you are saying, we want to have even our city employees, those that even that think that the strategies they sit at higher level, but it actually starts with us at the ground. That's when we looked at our employees from city parks that work with this operations of this garden waste, even our pick it up, and then we trained about 30 of our city employees in how to chip, because the city had about 4 chippers. So if this material then is chipped, and then for now it can be transported to the private sector. So in that, but also we also looked at the infrastructure that the city have. In as much as we are saying we do have the garden sites, our garden sites will they be able to take this waste? So we did a site assessment, suitability to study, to check even what kind of environmental authorization does our garden sites need. So just to see if this our sites that we have, the infrastructure that we have, will it be able to take this kind of waste stream? Will it be able for us to do that treatment options that we are looking at? So that's when then we looked at our 35 garden sites to see which one can be useful, because not all of them can do composting.
Yeah.
Not all of them can do chipping. So we looked at which one can be only be doing the chipping, and then when it's chipped, then it can be then transported to this big facility. As a city, we want to have this big facility where we can start composting. So that's where now it triggers your detailed environmental impact assessment. So it's where we are now. We have concluded even the site suitability that indicated which sites will be able for us to do the composting, and then we also started with the chipping. As we are sitting, because we also have our integrated waste management plan that stipulates how much diversion targets we need to do as a city. So by 2030, we have set a target of about 60% of our waste needs to be diverted away from landfill site. As we're speaking with this program that we are doing with C40 and UK, we have diverted about 15,000 tons that traditionally would have gone to our landfill site, but now it's no longer going to the landfill site. It's been chipped and then it's been transported to the composting facility. But as a city, we're still knocking other doors for us to get more funding so that we can have our own composting site that will be treating our garden waste.
This is not the kind of content that is trending on Instagram and trending on TikTok. Can we make it trend and just celebrate the efforts and the strides? Pretty please. I'm smiling here as a ratepayer, appreciating that these are activities that are happening. So shout out to you and your colleagues at the city for all of these interventions. And I suppose you mentioned C40 like 100 times. So shout out to you too, C40, for being a catalyst and enabler, particularly for municipalities such as the city of Johannesburg. Because if these catalytic opportunities are not there, then the energy continues to focus on the challenging realities of which, again, we already know. So, Louis, can you
Yeah.
top that? What are you doing? It sounds like some healthy competition.
No,
What are you up
definitely,
to?
definitely. Look, there's a lot for us to learn from COJ. But I think you guys are doing amazing work. And perhaps maybe just to start on the fresh produce market, we also have a fresh produce market in the city that provides the same service that Joburg does. And we are also looking into the space, and I guess the fact that they are a couple of steps ahead of us, will be exchanging notes after this. But we taking the approach, and again, C40, we're also a beneficiary of C40 in the work that they're doing.
We see you.
Yeah, so through C40, we also did a sort of a feasibility and developing of a business case for looking at our fresh produce market waste, which is a lot of organic material. And with that work that we completed through the assistance of C40, we're going out into the market. So shout out there that there's an expression of interest that we'll be sending out, inviting people that are interested in this material. And I think the approach, and you can hear from City of Joburg as well, that as municipalities, we do realize that the expertise might not lie with us in terms of, we do need to be outlooking as well, not only be inward looking. There's a lot of people that are doing great work out there, and who are interested in being partners with us in, helping us solve some of our issues. And so we're putting out an expression of interest, which should be going out in a few weeks, where we are inviting people who have proposals in terms of, wanting to have access to this material, very clean material, a lot of material that is currently going to our landfill, which we would want to see that coming to an end. So, and we're hoping that we'll get good responses from that invite. And we're also looking into the space of dealing with waste that's in our garden waste facilities. Again, we did C40 again, helped us to look at a program that looked at diverting of that material from landfilling. And that has taken strides, and it's working very well. I think we are now sitting with 70% of our garden waste facilities diverting green waste away from landfilling. And this is done through partnership with private sector. There's a few companies that are manufacturing compost that are working with the city. So the material is shipped on our facilities, and our partners come and collect the material. And they are producing compost that communities are buying from the shops. So some of it is coming from the city of Tshwane. So we're excited about that, and as I said, we're sitting at about 70%, and we're aiming to have all our facilities diverting material. But we're also using some of this material so that the city doesn't have to buy its own compost. We generate our own, which we're using in our facilities. Our parks divisions also use some of this material that we generate. So it's work in progress. And as I said, the opportunities are great. And I think when you look at organics waste and material, organic material, we also ventured into food, looking at food that comes from residential areas. And our focus took us mainly around the informal settlements, where there's a lot of food waste that's generated there, obviously. And we focus there because of the fact that, food material attracts a lot of, unhealthy conditions if it's not handled properly. And our informal settlements, obviously, they struggle with having this material removed from their families or from their areas effectively. And so we looked at that space and said, what do we do with this waste, with this organic material?
I was going to charge you $100
with organic material. Yeah.
I've been craving takeaways, and let him say waste again.
So working with C40 again, we went into the space of informal settlements. And it's a bigger program that looks at efficient management of, of waste from these areas. And then we looked at the fact that, okay, we're wanting to deal with the movement of waste from these areas to ensure that, this waste is managed properly. It's not finding itself in illegally dumped spaces, on open spaces, dumped as illegally in the spaces, and ends up being a nuisance. So in addressing that, we also looked at the fact that there's a lot of organic material that comes from these areas. And so we got involved with communities, went through a very intensive program of interacting with communities, running workshops and training, education and awareness programs, again supported by C40, working with NGOs that are working in the space called as Vikelani. And we put together a very big approach and strategy, which ended up as a formal strategy that the city is now using to inform how it does work in informal settlements. So, and what came out of that in terms of organic material is that the communities have now come and are taking this material and using it to make compost. So through the learnings that we got from this, the community also got involved, and they're now doing this work, and it's exciting stuff that they're doing. So they're making compost from organic material, which would normally go into a bin and be removed and disposed at a landfill. It's now being used to make compost, and this compost they are using for their community gardens.
Nice.
So it's exciting to see the community getting involved, and so we want to see this being expanded into all the informal settlements that we are servicing in the city, and so we continue to grow in it. And I think with regards to the organic material that's lying there, one of the areas that we're also looking at, we would want to expand into once we get the fresh produce market waste nicely back down. We want to also go into the restaurants that are in the city, looking at extracting organic material that comes from that waste stream. It's a tall ask, and we are testing some of this thinking to see if we can, separate this organic material from the normal waste stream and look at how do we beneficiate it, whether through composting or we get people that come and talk to these things called black soldier flies and interesting things that are in the space. So it's an exciting area of work, and we are growing in it as well in understanding. Yeah. And again, partnership with the private sector is key, because that's where the knowledge and the expertise lie. And we are looking to leverage on that. And that's why, as a city, you will see a lot of us putting out a lot of adverts inviting experts to come in and work with us. So that's the approach that we are taking. And the learnings that we get from these projects that we are putting out is tremendous. And we're wanting to see this work growing. And eventually, as per the requirement, I think there's a very big change in the legislation space, where the national environmental authorities are asking of municipalities to remove these fractions, this organic material, from their normal waste. Yeah. They don't want to see us bearing that, which is a very good move, I think. Yeah. I think for the country, for us to have that kind of a thing being legislated is actually a very positive thing. And as municipalities, we are lining up to make sure that we do just that for the benefit of our environment and for our cities and our residents. So yeah, so that's where we're at. It's work in progress, as I said. Yeah.
I always want to give you a round of applause, but I'm going to behave. Again, these are the stories that we ought to celebrate, lady and gent. Just hearing what you've mentioned in the informal settlements, the fact that you say they've taken up composting and they're able to have community gardens linked to it. Excellent work. And what I'm also picking up from all of this is a approach from a decentralization perspective. I'm going to be a bit biased here because my interest has always been in looking at ways we can decentralize waste beneficiation activities, right? So on one end, earlier you mentioned that the landfill component is going to become more challenging and more difficult to set up. So how best can we decentralize those activities? And that's just one such example. And of course, the partnership component that both of you keep reiterating enables the decentralization to happen. It enables the innovation. Black soldier flies is one of those innovations and technologies that people are still getting used to. And the beauty with such, or even vermicomposting, is that it can happen on a small scale. And it can happen on a large scale. It can happen in a dilapidated building. It can happen in an area that needs to be gentrified. So that's how we begin to be intentional and grab these opportunities that both cities are putting on the table. Now, as we work towards rounding up, I really want you to craft a call to action. So we've heard what you're doing. we appreciate that the efforts are there, there can be more. And we appreciate that you kept reiterating partnerships. So, as that call to action, whether it's a small business, it's a cooperative, it's a large business, whoever it is that can maximize on it,
Yeah.
what is it that you want them to take away from this conversation? The one thing, Louis, that you cannot say is the expression of interest, because Nick's map, huh? Jokes. But that's already a given call to action that when such opportunities come out, then we ought to go for it. So aside from that, what's your story? So let me be kind and let me start from you, and then we'll come back to time.
Yeah. So I think as a call to action, I think it's critical for each and every person to realize that the management of waste starts with each one of us. We generate waste. And if you take it from that point of view that it's my responsibility to play a part and support work that is happening. And I think one thing that we're now doing in the municipal space in the city of Tshwane is also looking at, I'm sure all of us have seen our informal, we call them informal recyclers, our brothers and sisters that are, recovering waste material from our bins that we put out for collection during collection day. A simple thing that you can do as a resident is separating the material in your house. Your plastic bottle, your can, your box, your paper. Put that aside. Don't mix it up with the pap and morojo from last night in the bin. Setting that aside and making it clean, it makes the material even more valuable for the person that comes to pick it up. I think for us, we want at least that part. If we can get that part to be done, and we are piloting work in some of our areas in the city where we're doing this work, and I think residents or every waste generator can start there. Just separate your waste. Get to learn a few things around that, and we have information available in our websites as municipalities. Waste material that is available or that is valuable and can be recycled and reused, and we're asking that residents play a part. One is the other area that we're going into, which again it's a call to action to our residents. When that comes out, we really want support and participation. Is again the removal of organic material from the waste bin, where we want to be issuing out what we call composting units, household composting units, where residents can start also doing a little bit of composting in their backyard. So that's another program that we are pursuing. And when that call comes, obviously we'll set up little pilots in the city. And when that call goes out, we do, invite our residents and our residents of the city to also participate and help us in that. So I think for me, the call of action is to firstly realize that you are responsible for that waste. And where people like the municipalities and other companies are playing in your space in terms of ensuring that material is handled differently. Just cooperate, play along, and you'd have done a lot. One of the other things that we're doing is in our drop-off facilities that are currently receiving only garden material, we're also wanting to set up drop-off bins for various materials, your cans and your boxes, that also residents can also come and drop off this material at these facilities. And our plan is to also allow the informal recyclers to come in and be able to recover clean material from this. So I think it's a call to action in that sense that when we do set up these interventions, we ask our, residents to support and be part of the move and the revolution towards a sustainable way of handling this material, this resource.
I almost want to say Viva, but I'm gonna. Okay. My mind is going because I also foresee a opportunity from a marketing and communication perspective. How do industry associations and various organizations share such opportunities? So if you have a TikTok page or you have a LinkedIn page as the city that gives us an opportunity to retweet, to like, follow, and subscribe, because the website might not be the only place that we're going to, but how do we
Yeah.
also make it trend next to Beyonce? How do we make it trend next to, the other geopolitical issues that are taking place? Because these are the stories that need to be put out there.
Yeah.
These are the, oh, okay. All right. But you got my my 2 cents around the communication angle.
Absolutely.
All right. And I
Absolutely.
really appreciate the focus on separation at source, because in all the content that we've ever created, we always talk about these activities starting at home, starting with you, yes, and you as well. So all of you, irrespective of your sector, irrespective of your age, irrespective of where you live, for as long as you are eating and breathing, we are generators of waste. And just taking on the simple approach of separating, start with 2 or even 3 bins, and you can be creative with what those bins look like. That separation alone is creating value for the material. It's creating prospective job opportunities. It's also creating a platform for cooperatives and other enterprises to use it as raw material and turn it into something else. I hope we did not take away from your call to action. You can't say dololo.
I think just to add on, the most important thing is education and awareness. I think education and awareness is still lacking.
Yeah.
So I think what we are putting out there as a city is to start to put our educational material to educate our residents on how the importance of separation at source, what does it entail, what does it mean. And we're also as a city like busy in a process of developing a citywide biodegradable strategy. That strategy will actually assist us to map. We already mapped all the sources, your household level, the quantification, the private sector, the companies that are generating this, your restaurants, your schools, your hospitals. So those are the sectors we want to venture into and working with them, partnering in terms of how we can separate. So what we are trying to model as a city, we want to model a 3 bin system.
Okay.
So where we want to separate your recyclable material, one bin, your other bin will be your organic waste, and the third will be the one that pick it up will come and collect.
Okay.
That is what we want to change the mindset of our households. And another thing, as my colleague said, in terms of the informal sector, we have a lot of waste pickers that are within the space of waste management. But when we engage with them, we have realized that they've not yet ventured in the space of organic waste. So what we are doing as a city now is to give them training how they can venture into your organic waste, the restaurants. So in the training that we did, that we were doing for our employees, there's another component through C40 again, where we also were capacitating our informal waste pickers to start to beneficiate in the space of organic waste. Also, our communities, we have your environmental NGOs that are working with us in the city of Johannesburg in terms of your schools as well, how they can do their own composting at a school level in their garden sites. So we also have your your gardens in the schools. So if they start into composting, they can use that compost into their gardens. That's what we are putting out there. Also, one thing is in terms of our waste pickers, we also want to have a facility that will also cater for their needs. So also looking the infrastructure, looking at the kind of infrastructure that we have in the city to cater for the informals, to cater for the cooperatives, because we also want our small SMEs to compete with the big companies to also venture into this space. We empower them to say there is business. We work with our DED, Development of Economic Department of Economic Development, to say let's bring the cooperatives as well to come see the beneficiation in the waste management sector, both your recyclable and your organic waste in terms of your composting. So that's what we are leveraging on right now. Also, I think something that we don't talk about is the incentives. I think another thing, we need to incentivize good behavior. So I
Okay.
think we are not out there as municipalities. Even my colleague can even say we don't incentivize good behavior. I think there's a model that we also see in other European countries like your Italy, where they say pay as you throw.
Yeah.
So they actually incentivize for for doing separation at source, for making sure that you separate your waste. You get incentivized. I think it's something that we have to do as municipalities, look at the communities that are doing good behaviors, even the school competitions, and then enter in that space so that we change the mindset from school level. Even like you were saying, to even have a curriculum talking about recycling, to be part of those things. I know I'm dreaming, but it's good to
Dreams
dream
do come
again.
true.
So it's good to dream as well. So I think we'll look in the program of also incentivizing our communities that are doing this, because we also have complexes, your household that are already doing the separation at source. If we start incentivizing to say, if in the rates you were supposed to pay 500 for the fact that you separated your waste, you separate your waste, we can incentivize your 100 rent, offset your 100 rent from what you were supposed to pay into the municipalities. So that's something that we're also looking at, but we still, because remember in South Africa we have unemployment, our livelihood. So it's something that we still have to model, research more. How can we employ that, incentivizing our residents for good behavior, even the schools, even the NGOs that are in the environmental space. So we have our department that are doing awareness and education. So they are leveraging on those schools, your NGOs, to do the actual education and awareness, because as a city we also have a capacity challenge. We cannot reach all the regions, but if we have communities that are willing to educate, who are willing to come and play their part, and the households that come and play their part, I think that is the call for action. And also in terms of our marketing and communication, I think we have a good relationship with our communication and marketing in the city of Johannesburg. So we also go into the platform. We're also in the process of doing a visuals to educate our communities in terms of the programs that the city is doing, how can they benefit, how can they do some of the things at a household level. So I think the call for action for us now as a city is also copy from our sister municipality to say, let's go into the communities, let's have our household composting starting to happen. Let's see what resources are needed there. How can we leverage and then also make budget available? Because most of these things also need budget as well. Make budget available, fight for the budgets, the budget adjustments, so that we have much enough money to ensure that we implement this program. And I hope C40 will continue watching and help us to continue with these programs as well. But we're also calling other partners besides C40 to come and assist the municipalities. I think our doors are open. We have realized that alone we cannot win, so we need to leverage on the partnerships that are out there to come and assist us. So that's the way.
Viva.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, you are just hitting the nail right on the head. And I'm removing my hat as a guest and, well, as a presenter. I'm putting on my hat as a liker of things. I'm seeing opportunities for training workshops. One can actually run a little business along those lines and offer it to schools, offer it to even churches and stockfels. Set up nicely and run such initiatives, whether it's engaging the city like, hey, this is what we're going to do, FYI, or hey, it's aligned with a particular regulation. It's a low hanging fruit. I'm also seeing a chance for, again, more decentralized organics. So I could be collecting the shredded material and making biochar in my community. So it becomes eco brai,
Yeah.
instead of the traditional charcoal. I'm also seeing opportunities for influencers and social media personnel to kind of tell a little more positive stories of the space, because the storytelling component is certainly a space that we can continue to enhance. As you've heard, there are things happening. Let's celebrate those things. Let's tell the stories. Let's show the photos. And lastly, from a budget perspective, aside from C40, of course, we can use this podcast to fundraise. How about that? Because we've told them all of these possibilities and where
Yeah.
the funders can fit in. Ah, so lady and gent, I've really had the most supercalifragilisticexpialidocious time with you both. I'm just excited as an individual. I'm excited as a practitioner in the space that we've had this opportunity to appreciate the work that you're doing. And I'm humbly asking that you continue and continue telling the stories as well, where industry associations or organizations can help co create those stories. Please feel free to let us know. We can also share it within the networks of everyone who sat on this green couch, because that's what it is about at the end of the day, to make sure that Thomas, Mary, Cynthia, they're aware, because we know that they've got the kind of technology or capacity that can complement these efforts. And as a parting point to the listeners and the guests, you know the drill. Tonight, tomorrow, this morning, have these conversations at home, because that is where it starts. It starts by us being intentional. Don't skip through the podcast and just extract a certain component. No, from the beginning to the end, so that you can really appreciate where you see yourselves
Yeah.
playing a role. And also, if you're looking for a career change, this space, the entire value chain, offers that. So until the next episode, thank you, Mokgadi, thank you, Louis, for being with us on the green couch, and wishing you nothing less of the best.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so
Thank you
much.
so much.
Thanks for
Awesome.
having us.
All right, continue separating at source.
Hey.
Bye.
Bye.